Hello, my name's Elliott Lawrence. I'm the Lucas County 4-H educator, and today I'm going to teach you a lesson for camp counselors, and it's entitled, You Never Fly Solo with a Wingman. So I'm going to talk today about the wingman concept. The wingman term is a time-honored tradition with the Air Force, actually, so among the flying community, and it's actually derived from when you're actually a wingman. So you're with another person, and you've got that other person's back in every situation you get to. And as we talk about camp counselor training, it's a really good it's a good way to have pair together camp counselors and also allow them to work out some differences maybe or some problems that they might have at camp that they don't want to share with the rest of the counselor team, or maybe they don't want to share it with the camp director or any camp staff. So when we're talking about the wingman concept, one of the first things that we have to think about is this something that needs to be taken care of immediately? Is this something that is somebody's life is in danger? Or if you don't do something immediately, will it escalate into another problem? So those types of things are called bold-face actions. This is also borrowed from the Air Force community, and it deals with in-flight emergencies when you're talking about flying an aircraft. So the bold-face actions obviously are going to help cause you from wrecking your plane or crashing to the ground or something very terrible happening when you're flying a plane. When you're a camp counselor, it's something very similar. You're obviously not flying a plane, you're not going to wreck to the ground, but there's a point in time where you have to know, do I need to pull my parachute? Do I need to get out now? Do I need to go find some other help that I might not, maybe my co-counselor or my wingman might not be able to solve it? Do I need to go to a camp director? I need to go to staff or something like that. And so we'll talk a little bit about what those bold-face actions might be and when you should probably ask for help when you need help. So as a wingman, you should know the four basic steps of the wingman bold-face concept. First of all, what you want to do is you want to assess the issue the individual's having. So, do we really know what's going on? Do we need to talk about what's happening? Do we need to get somebody else on board with what went on, or can we solve this ourselves? Assess the individual's ability to solve the situation. So you don't always want to step in and try to solve the situation. Maybe that other counselor might be able to solve that situation themselves. If the other counselor asks you for help, then that's when the time happens. So then assess the status of the four dimensions of wellness. And then the four dimensions of wellness, of course, are physical, emotional, social, and spiritual. So you want to make sure that, is that other counselor getting all of those things taken care of? Are they working with each other or working with another counselor? Are they being able to get that taken care of? And then the most important thing is you got to stay on your wingman's wingtip until a positive handoff. So if a problem does escalate, then you need to stay with that wingman and provide them with the emotional and physical support there too. And then also you could have a second person to explain the situation to whoever you're going to, if it's a 4-H staff or a camp staff or a camp director or anything like that. So the first thing, and we can pause the recording here for a second, and so in groups of 3 or 4, and you can utilize the breakout rooms if you're in Zoom right now, or you can also just work on this yourselves. So there's a attachment that you should have in front of you that has several cards on it, and in those cards, I want you to talk about what are these 3 categories and how each one of those cards can go into a different category. First category is it can wait. It can wait until our next wingman meeting. Or bold-face action. Nope, something has to be done right now. It has to go into effect right now. And then the third one is you don't even have to worry about it. Don't bring it up at your wingman meeting. Don't bring it up to the camp director. Don't bring it up at your counselor meeting. Don't worry about it. Just don't even. So why don't you take about a couple minutes, and as I said, if you're on Zoom, you could utilize the breakout rooms. If you're not on Zoom, then you can just do this activity yourself. Okay, so we should be back from this activity. There's a wide variety of cards and situations that you might get into. One of the things one of my favorites is that you think two counselors might have a crush on each other. So this is something that we might run into all the time, you know, and this happens at camp, right? And so this is something we need to know. Do we need to talk about that with other groups of people, or do we need to even talk about that with our other wingman? Yeah, sometimes probably not. Sometimes maybe. If you think that things might escalate in that crush and things might start to happen, then you might need to talk about that with somebody. That might even be a bold-face action. If they're if they're paying too much time with each other and not enough time with campers, then you might need to take that into consideration, and you might have to do something about that. Another one is that the camp director yelled at me, and it wasn't even my fault. So this is something that could be questionable. It can wait, or maybe don't even think about it. Don't even bother with it. Don't even bring it up. Well, the it can wait would probably be the better option, because maybe after talking about it with your wingman, you'll realize that maybe what I did do was wrong. Maybe it was my fault. So it might be something that you might need to bring up during your next wingman meeting, and talk it over, and another opinion might help you out understand what happened, and why the camp director did yell at you. So when you're with your wingman, or when you're around your wingman, often you're in the position to spot first signs of trouble, and you're the best position to listen and engage. I feel like you should have some wingman sessions during camp, maybe once a day. You can maybe have some time set aside where it's just you and your wingman. Later on, in a couple slides later, actually I think it's the next slide, you'll find out what the best method to choosing your wingman would be. But this is a good time to really know how your wingman operates, and what's happening if your wingman is feeling down, if your wingman just doesn't look like themselves anymore, not act like themselves anymore, you know, what's happening. And then take that time to really try to be that sounding block, so that your wingman is able to feel comfortable in having time and space to talk to you about whatever problem they might be having. And so once again, in some groups, or maybe think about it yourself, how can you apply the wingman strategy to your camp counselor role? So just in a couple minutes here, once again, we can pause the video, and in a couple minutes you can talk about that among yourselves, or you can think about it yourself if you're watching this by yourself then. Okay, so how can you apply the wingman strategy to your camp counselor role? I think the best way to do it is just be that supportive person with the other counselors. If you see something going on and you think that that's not right, and that's really troubling the other counselor, then you can be in there, you can step in and be that person to help that counselor. We're all in this as a team, as a camp counselor team. And many of you are leading the camps, you know, the adult staff and the camp director. Once we get to camp, the counselors are the ones that are leading that camp, and really the counselors have to be healthy both physically and mentally. And this takes care of more of a mental side of how you can be healthy, because a lot of times situations might come up that you don't feel comfortable with talking to the entire counselor team, or you might not feel comfortable in bringing it to the camp director or any camp staff. That's what the wingman is there for. The wingman is there so you can have those one-on-one meetings in private, and be able to talk to them about whatever problem you might have. whether that's good or bad. Sometimes you can talk to them about good problems you have too. So how do you choose your wingman? This is interesting because the first thing, the natural thing you want to do is you want to go to somebody that you know because you feel comfortable with talking to them. This is not something that you want to do when you're choosing the wingman. Don't choose a close friend. Don't choose a cabin mate. And you definitely need to choose somebody that has a different level of experience than you. If you're a first year counselor, you need to be a wingman to a last year counselor, fourth year counselor, third year, whatever. Somebody that's been there longer than you because they bring in more experience than you do, but you also bring in that fresh set of eyes. So there are some things that they might have been doing for years that you just think this doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't work. It's not part of our camp culture. It just doesn't need to happen anymore. So that wingman position that you're holding, even as a new counselor, could be really, really important to the overall performance of camp. Don't choose a close friend. Even if you're having problems with that friend, who are you going to talk to? Also, with the close friend, you're going to go back home and you're going to see this close friend all the time. And you don't want to ruin a close friendship if you're bothering them with something, or maybe you're wingman and you get into an argument at camp about something at camp, and then you go home and now you have that close friend that you now have this in the back of your mind that, oh, we got in this big argument at camp about something, and now I look at them differently. And plus, your close friend isn't always going to tell you the truth. A lot of times your close friend is going to tell you what you want to hear. This is something that we all struggle with, but it's a lot of times they tell you what you want to hear. So they're going to take your side, especially if it's something really bad. They're going to take your side. Whereas somebody that doesn't know you, they're just there to be a camp counselor. They're there to be your wingman. They're going to tell you the truth. They're going to tell you, hey, no, you did something wrong. You need to take ownership of that and you need to correct the problem. Cabin mate, same thing. If you have a problem with your cabin, if you have a problem with your cabin mate, the one person that you're probably going to get into an argument, if you're going to get into an argument, not saying that you always get in an argument, but if you're going to get into an argument, is probably going to be your cabin mate. You're living in close quarters together. You're both running the cabin. There might be a conflict in personalities. If that's your wingman, then there's no way to bounce off that person because they're already having a hard time getting along with you. So then the wingman checkups. Wingman checkups, I like to have once a day, different from the counselor meetings, not at the same time as the counselor meetings. And the checkups don't have to necessarily be as long as a counselor meeting either. Because that's the other thing you have to think about is during these wingman checkups, all the counselors are going to be checking up with their wingmen. What are the kids doing? Well, who's controlling the kids? And so it has to be a short amount of time. And maybe you can even stagger them too. Some of the counselors do it at this time, some do it at another time. And it doesn't always have to be formal. It can also be a very informal process. I feel like more of a formal, like there's a set time during the day that you can meet with your wingman. Doesn't mean that you can't be keeping an eye on the kids, on the campers, but it also means that you're meeting with that wingman. And so I like to have it at least once a day. And usually the wingman meetings last anywhere from 5, 10, 15 minutes. If there's something that's really pressing, it might last a little bit longer. One of the big things is it's not a gripe session. It's not a time to gossip about all the rest of the counselors. It's not a time to gripe about the food at camp or gripe about how you're not getting any sleep or anything like that. That's not what the wingman checkups are for. Wingman checkups are for allowing you to talk candidly and privately with somebody else about some issues that you're having. If you're not having any issues, then talk about some fun stuff that you've done, because that's one of the important things. One of the choices back in the activity that we did, one of the cards said something about you're really tired and you're worn out and you don't think you can make it to the end of camp. During this wingman session, if you're talking about something that's really exciting, then your wingman is naturally going to get excited too. And you can kind of mold that excitement into pushing them into the rest of camp. And that might be the one thing that gets your wingman through the rest of camp is making excitement. So be a wingman. It starts with you, and it depends upon all of us, working together as a team. As I said, we're all in it as a team. No one, the counselors and the campers alike, should be treated as if they don't belong and they don't fit in. One thing I always tell my counselors at the beginning of every training season is that what's the culture of our camp? The culture of our camp is everyone belongs. Everyone belongs, and everyone can be who they want to be. And this wingman concept is one of the best practices for that. Everyone belongs, and everyone is who they want to be. The wingman concept really extends past your own personal wingman, and you can be everybody's wingman. If you see a counselor, you've worked with these counselors for months leading up to camp. You're getting to know them pretty well. Some of you might know really well. So if you see one of them that's really struggling, and you see one that's really down and in acting emotionally exhausted or something, you can be their wingman. It doesn't have to necessarily mean that you're their assigned wingman or their chosen wingman, but we can all be wingmen and together, and we can look out for everybody. So once again, if you have a few extra minutes, we can pause the video right now, and we could try out our new wingman skills. So find a person maybe right next to you, and talk about maybe what you've learned from the training, what you've learned for your counselor training so far. If you've been to camp before, what your favorite part about camp is. Do you have any questions about training? Do you have any questions about camp? And how are you going to use the information you learned when you're a counselor? And then just get to know the wing, get to know your wingman, get to know what they like, get to know what they don't like, find out what their favorite camp activity is, find out what they do at school, find out what they're doing right now. Just get to know them. So we'll pause for a few minutes, and then we'll come back and wrap it up. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody, for coming back. And I really do appreciate everybody for watching this video. Hopefully it helps you out, and you'll be able to really use this activity. I find it really beneficial to counselors to have that one person to kind of lean on and to kind of bounce ideas off of, both good or bad. Once again, here's my contact information. Here is on the screen. If you have any questions about anything, always feel free to contact me, and happy camping.